Hello and welcome to the Sharpening Report. I am your host, Josh Peck. Tonight we have a very exciting guest for you, J.C. Johnson of Crypto Four Corners. This group's research includes Bigfoot, giant snakes, living dinosaurs, werewolves, dragons, giant birds, pterodactyls, centaurs, skinwalkers, and other cryptids that are frequently reported in the Four Corners area of Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah. JC has even been called the Indiana Jones of cryptozoology. He's a true expert in his field. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome JC Johnson to the show. JC, how you doing?
Absolute pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure to have you. I'm really glad we were able to do this. I got quite a few people in the Sharpening Report Facebook group that suggested you as a guest, and yeah, for the audience, I've had the opportunity to talk with JC a couple times now, and absolutely phenomenal research that you're doing. You got a lot of really interesting stuff out there.
Well, thank you so much. It's my nightmare, and I guess I'll share it with all of you. There you go.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, completely understandable. Yeah, you've seen a lot of things. For those who might not be familiar, could you give us a rundown of your testimony, how you came to know Jesus, and how that led to the types of things that you do today?
Well, I think essentially probably back in 2003, 2004, I went back into Scripture to find fault, and in doing so, I was probably trying to excuse my lifestyle at the time. And then going back through Scripture, I ended up reconvicting myself. So that's essentially what happens. And then, it was going back into the study of Scripture and going front to back, back to front, front to back, back to front, all through the whole of Scripture, the Torah, everything else, and becoming a student of Scripture, becoming a student of Septuagint Greek and world history and everything else on that end. That all these little things were placed in my mind. And as I encountered some of this other stuff, it all started coming together, making other things make sense. And I'm really glad that, I put my nose in a book, probably the best book you'll ever read, the Bible. And I'm so glad I did that, because that was some really good food for me. And to store that food and to have it available when I needed it, because it helped me realize that a lot of these things that I'm looking into and being a part of are all connected, and they're biblical in nature.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It seems like too, which is kind of interesting. The idea of Genesis 6 and what actually happened there. From my experience, a lot of researchers have come into either like a reawakening of the Bible, or even reading the Bible for the first time through that, and myself included. I was raised really traditional Baptist, so we didn't really deal much with the kind of fringe stuff that I'm in now. But through a proper understanding of Genesis 6, that opened everything up, and it really connects a lot with the type of research that you do, and the types of experiences you had. And you certainly had a lot of experiences, and you've done a lot of research and have come to some really surprising conclusions, and conclusions that I agree with as well. I definitely want to get into all the strange creatures you've studied, and with your extensive background, I figured what I would do is just basically hand the show over to you and let you take us where you would like to go. So how would you like to get started?
Well, you've got questions. Probably best start with the questions, and then we'll go from there. Because we'll probably lose track of these questions, and we'll get off into a whole different millennium and plateau somewhere else. But start with the questions. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, and for the audience, if you want the chance to send in viewer questions, you can do so at the Facebook, the Sharpening group on Facebook, the Sharpening Report Facebook group. Anytime I have a new guest on, I'll give you the opportunity to post your questions below, and I've never had a guest refuse that. So so as far as I know, every future guest will be okay with that. So but I love that. I think that's a great place to start. first question that we have comes in from Mark. Mark writes in, I'd be interested in his knowledge of the history of dragons, present-day dinosaurs, and dinosaur soft tissue research / dating.
Well, of interest, on a personal note, we were going through Red Valley, which is in Arizona near, well, actually this particular section is on the Navajo reservation. And we found some prints about 3 weeks old, and going up a slippery slope, whatever it was, had to get down on all fours to get up the slippery slope. Well, the hind prints had 3 toes on them. They're identical to fossilized prints that we find in the area. The front prints look like mittens in the mud. So it was like hands that smushed down in the mud. So Chief Dan was there with us. He's our Navajo elder, and he estimated the weight of this creature to be well over 1,600 pounds. He also said that the tracks were about 3 weeks old. So in my opinion, we have some type of relic reptile in the area 3 weeks prior to our visit. They're still out there. I still get reports. I still talk to sheep herders, things of that nature, where they're seeing these relic reptiles. They're still around.
Wow. Yeah. I've heard stories
fast like they used to be.
Well, of course. Yeah, I've heard stories about that too. People in Africa having sightings of present day dinosaurs. It's fascinating stuff.
Now, think about this too. Earlier configurations of mankind. You and I planted a 200-acre cornfield. We're sitting back with our, look what we did. Oh, we're so happy. Look at that beautiful corn. And a brontosaurus comes in and starts eating our corn. What are you and I going to do? We're going to have brontosaurus steaks that night. So, I mean, I think a lot of...
we're going to get rid of it.
A lot of your relic reptiles, when they got in a position to be a bother or a bothersome situation, people dispatched them. It was us, essentially, in the end. I think it was us, modern humans, and paleo-type humans who killed off the dinosaurs.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and it is interesting too that they a couple of years ago that they actually found soft tissue in a dinosaur bone that was supposed to be, millions of years old or hundreds of thousands or however much they're saying now. But of course, they couldn't take that and say, oh, maybe we're wrong about the 8 dinosaurs. Maybe there are some still. And I thought.
Oh, we flipped out. Check. 1, 2.
You there?
Yeah, we're fading.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Going back to the lady, the scientist with tissue of interest, I was in Dr. Ketchum's, Dr. Melville's whole genome study for the hominid, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, if you will, and an early publicist for Dr. Melville on this. She was also a publicist for the lady who found the dinosaur tissue in the bones, and they like to crucify that woman. I mean, Scientifica, that's my word. I made it up. It's my word. Scientifica ripped this woman apart until exhaustively they found the findings were correct. So, you've always got a narrative with Scientifica and academia and all these other outfits out there. They've got the PhDs in front of their names, and you can only stack that so high. Okay, but you've got narratives. And once again, you've got a lot of atheists. When you question the theory of evolution, that's their religion, even though they're an atheist. They subscribe to it in the same such matters that we would. Oh, no, you're wrong. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, you see people going into hissy fits over, questioning that. The out of Africa scenario is gone. That's just proven. Little by little, we're going to whittle away Darwin's little fantasy masterpiece. What I do agree with him on is natural selection and adaptation. I'm there with that. things left alone to essentially evolve on their own or adapt on their own, do so. This is something we witness out in our investigation. So I'm cool with that. I give them credit for that, but everything else, you know, the fossil record doesn't show me how a whale turned into a dog. It doesn't show us that. It doesn't come together. So it is a theory of hypotheses, and it's become religion.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. And, you know, of course, most subscribing to theories like that will never equate it as a religion, but it absolutely is. I totally agree. Elaine writes in, ask him what he knows about Michigan's legend of the Dogman. Elaine lives in Michigan, as do I, and we have the legend of the Dogman. Do you have any thoughts or anything on that topic?
Well, once again, we get into a topic like that, you've got 20 different scenarios with an upright walking candidate at any given time. There is no easy, convenient umbrella description for this phenomenon. It's a case-by-case basis. We do have, I shared with you Navajo Skinwalkers and Legends, our documentary. 90% of what I've investigated as far as that goes has been an upright walking wolf, 8 or 9 feet tall.
Wow.
But, you know, you've got that out there. I don't call that a dog man. It looks like a dog, and it could be a man, but it's not a dog man. It's something else. And these are entities shifted that were a person earlier. And the same fact would apply toward the weird, W-E-I-R, as in werewolves. And that's more of a Caucasian practice, where this person, this human being, is able to shapeshift into this gargantuan bipedal wolf. So there you've got your skinwalker, you've got your weird, and now we get into different facets and aspects. One of the things I'm working on up north here near Canada is we are having regular encounters with a female that is considered a dog man, a dog person, something like that.
Oh, wow.
The dog men are what they are all the time. You've got babies, you've got mamas, you've got teenagers, you know, you've got all the aspects of families and family units in culture, essentially, when it comes to these dog entities that can walk upright. They're just as much as home on all fours as they are up on 2 legs. But the equivalent factors, they have hands. They don't have front paws, they have hands.
Oh,
so that's
wow.
That's the freaky deaky thing. So,
yeah.
Yeah, and the female in our study presently, she's over 9 feet tall when she stands up. And it's I'm not, you know, I've seen my fair share of the furry people, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, if you will. I think I'm better wired for that now than I was many years ago. But when this female dog thing stood up, it was freaky. It was freaky. But, you know, I only freaked out for a little bit, and I had the camera going, pa-ting, pa-ting, pa-ting. I'll get you. Pa-ting, pa-ting. But it was a bit unnerving to see something like that stand up.
I bet. Did you get any good pictures of it?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
Or better
wow.
than most. Better than most. And once again, I mean, even for our own self-satisfaction, we're just going to keep working on getting better pictures, better videos. That's what we're doing. It's all out of pocket. There's no money. There's no backers. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. The most cryptid thing out there is the check writer. More mysterious than the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, or the Chupacabra is this cryptid check writer. When these people go, well, he just doing it for money, you know, you've got about 3 brain cells to rub together. There's no money. There's no mysterious benefactor out there funding this. It's us out of pocket. As you may well know, as anybody who has delved into this, at least maybe, you know, I could be on TV. JC, stick your hand out in that hole and see if something bites you. Okay. You know, I mean, yeah, okay. JC stuck his hand in the hole to see if something bit him. That's that really is the mentality of the fluoridated Joe and Jane six pack out there. It's unfortunate, it really is, and I don't think there'll ever be an avenue or venue that could actually depict what we're doing. I just don't see it. So I've given up on any possibilities of television. Unless I want to go around sticking my hand down and gopher holes and in badger holes, that's entertainment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He got his pinky finger bit off here. Yeah. I'm going to tune in next week, see what else that guy does. Sorry, I'm not picking on anybody.
Exactly.
I will give credit and kudos to Ken Gerhard and Jack Jimenez and so forth. They're doing Missing in Alaska, which is fairly intriguing so far. And they got to keep their facts straight, because you're going to get called to the carpet if there's a tiny. So keep your facts straight. But I do enjoy what they're doing, and they're very blessed to have an opportunity like that, because I guess there's well over 30,000 people missing in Alaska in recent years, and there's so many different factions involved in that. And bouncing off a little further, my colleague David Pilates in his Missing 411 book series delves into that a little bit. He doesn't get a pet theory. He doesn't say Bigfoot's doing it, Dogman's doing it, werewolves are doing it, little green men, anything like that. There's not a pet theory. It's just essentially the most mysterious cases that they've obviously. It wasn't suicide. It wasn't somebody just wanting to go get back to nature, blah, blah, blah. This is the really mysterious cases unsolved. And some, at least in the end, if we have a corpse, a cadaver, then even that is not solved, because we don't know what happened to this person or this child.
Yeah, I was looking into some of his work too, and some of the cases, well, all of the cases, but there are some that really stick out as just weird. And I actually kind of like that he doesn't really disclose what he might, like you said, he doesn't have a pet theory or anything. He just kind of gives the he just gives the information, and we do with it what we will. But it's really weird, the types of cases of missing people, and I've heard that thing about Alaska too. Really strange stuff.
Anyway, Missing in Alaska is probably the most legit reality program on television, and it's something that they were able to put together and cover, and they don't have to spend more than 2 or 3 days on a topic. Whereas what we're doing. Do you have like 6 weeks? Can you hang out with us for like 6 weeks or maybe even 2 months, and we might get a good photo? There's no budget for that. So from there, you end up with scripted crypto fiction. And I think Ken Gerhard said it best: scriptozoology.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good term for it.
Let me stick my hand down in the badger hole. Ah! Ah! Okay. I'm back. Okay. Entertainment.
Yeah.
Cryptozoology. I mean, the Mountain Monsters, it's on Destination America. I love working with them. I've been on their programs, but it's scripted crypto fiction. But what they do to mix things up is they will bring in a real witness or two. They might even have a real photo. But everything else that happens to them, every episode, the monster shows up and tries to kick their butts and stuff like that. It's just, and people buy into it. But then again, there's a lot of people who still watch professional wrestling.
Yeah,
it's real, so that's fine. That's not the people we're trying to get out to, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I hear you. And because I know my audience is going to want to know, they're going to kill me if I don't ask. Do you have the pictures anywhere online where people can view it, or any footage or anything?
We've got the YouTube channel. I've got well over 55 investigative videos you can go look at free of charge.
Awesome. Fantastic. So yeah, for the audience. Yeah, for the audience. What was the link to that again?
JC Johnson at YouTube, and it's also under the Crypto Four Corners, CryptoFourCorners, Crypto Four Corners channel. Just Google on JC Johnson on YouTube, you'll find us.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you. And I for the audience, I've had a chance to view some of the videos myself, and they're phenomenal. I mean, there is real hard evidence there, better than anything I've ever seen. And I've been interested in this kind of stuff for years, so so people should definitely check that out. Go ahead.
The cutoff. Here's the cutoff. What we're doing, I'm not doing a show me, prove me thing. We're in the doing. We do this. This is what we're doing. This. We're not doing a show me, prove me thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Not even there. Come along. I'm not out to prove anything. Everything's free. I don't want your money. I would like your prayers, but I don't want your money. We're not after your money. We have nothing for sale. We're just, you come along and see what we're doing. Come along and talk to our witnesses alongside of us and be a part of it. Be there front row and center to see what we're doing. That's about it. And it's not a show me, prove me thing. I could care less what you think is real or not. I don't care. I'm not out here to prove anything. I think in the end, we're trying probably just to make a good case for what it is that we're doing, because we're doing things. That's the difference. We're doing, we're not show me, prove me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And it really comes through strong in your videos and things that you have on YouTube. My wife and I have watched quite a few of them, and we love them. And you do have really excellent witnesses, which is phenomenal. There's a type of genuineness to it that I think a lot of shows on network TV, that it gets lost. But with what you put out there, because it's not driving. Let's see, where do we leave off? Tim writes in, how about the mysterious legend of the Jersey Devil and how this creature may hold extreme significance to the genetic experiments of the fallen angels and human women, as well as the changeling mythos?
Well, you got the Chimeras going on, essentially have been going on forever.
Yeah.
And the little green dude I sent you a photo of.
Yeah.
Woods. I mean, that's a freaky deaky thing. And those things are running around in packs, and they take people. And I'm never going to wear shorts in the woods up here ever again. I'm never going to. The stuff is out there. It's all around us. We go back, everything, essentially 90%, 95%, I would say, of what I'm dealing with that's in the flesh presently is a product of genetic manipulation from a very long time ago. Some of these genetic manipulations were successful. Some of them weren't. Some of them didn't make it through the flood. Some of them did.
Yeah.
And they're still here, and they've been successful.
Yeah. I
found niche markets, niche areas to survive and be prolific. And let's go to the Dogman. The Dogman proper, not the shapeshifter, not the skinwalker, not the werewolf. The Dogman, a product of genetic manipulation. They were successful. They survived the flood, and they were off the Isles of India. They were on the continent of India proper. Marco Polo writes about them. Some other explorers write about them. They were fierce warriors. They weaved silk. They essentially lived in caves. They did have some livestock. I think one of the brief assessments of their population was well over 200,000 at one time.
Wow.
And these are the early explorers talking about them. The kings of the time would send them tribute of shields, bucklers, swords, bows, just to kind of like, hey, don't come call us in our sleep.
Yeah, wow.
And they would contract and hire mercenaries of these dogmen to fight in battle because they were so fierce. a lot of these things with the advent of modern firearms step back into the shadows because they aren't so fierce, they aren't so loathsome, and we have the equalizers. So their part and place in history and their usefulness becomes null and void, essentially, and they step back out of the spotlight, if you will. They go into hiding because now it's easy to go and get rid of these things. We don't have to send them swords and bucklers and shields. We'll just go wipe them out. So I mean, this is the change up is the advent of modern firearms, the equalizer.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and that kind of goes along with another question that came in. Audrey wrote. You touched on this, so if you have anything to add, Audrey wrote in. Let's see. Get him to talk on present-day chimeras made in a laboratory that may be an example or an explanation for some of the cryptoids. What's his spiritual take on this topic?
But I get that. That's posted to me all the time. That's asked of me all the time. And let's go back to Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the area hominids, if you will. We've got Native American legends going back hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, living and being alongside of these creatures. So obviously they didn't come out of a laboratory. And a lot of these other things have been around for a very long time. It's not something that got whipped up and dreamed up by a mad scientist and turned loose on the populace. It isn't quite like that. So I case by case basis, let's look at how long these different things have been around and reported, if not written, at least oral tradition through the Native American tribes. Have been around for a long time. There are things going on in laboratories. I guarantee you, there are things going on in laboratories just outside of our stratosphere in horrible, horrific situations where people are getting their semen taken, their ovaries. It's terrible. There is genetic manipulation going on. There's a breeding program going on because we do work with a lot of the abductees who don't want to be abductees anymore. We do work with those people, and we do hear their stories. And a lot of 95% of anything going on when you're taken up by these black-eyed bastards, excuse my French, is
no, that's fine. That's what they are. Yeah.
It's some type of something to do with reproduction. And then we talk to the people who later go and see their children on the craft.
Yeah,
it's messed up. So I mean, there's something going on with that, and once again, the princely power of the air, the princely power of darkness. Evil likes to imitate good, but it isn't quite right. When they pull it off, you and I could take a counterfeit $100 bill and buy a bunch of shoes for orphans.
Right.
But in the end, what did we do? We passed a counterfeit $100 bill. So yin yang kind of it never quite works all right. So Lucifer would like to be God. He wants to be God, and he's working on his own little life forms. Has been for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good analogy too about the counterfeit $100 bill because that's what a lot of the experiencers or people in New Age theology who talk to spirit guides, and they have ways of justifying it, like, well, they're not really, they're helping me through whatever, and they have all these excuses, but really when it comes down to it, it is a counterfeit. So I absolutely agree with you there. Audrey also writes in, what does he know about mermaids and sirens?
Once again, let's go back to the Book of Enoch.
Absolutely.
And the Watchers send Enoch up because they've done these terrible things with womankind, and they've given freakish offspring power and entity. It's a real nepotism going on. My freak, 40-foot tall sun should be worshipped as a god, so I'm going to put him in place. Or I'm going to make this offspring of mine a pharaoh. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I mean, you know, even the brief writings in the Book of Giants from the Dead Sea Scrolls, we well realize that the fallen ones had attachments to their genetic manipulations, if you will, and or their full-on births. Typically, I would think with womankind, they would have had full-on births or a C-section going on. But, you know, later they go on and combine their DNA with all of creation. But after the fact, that's after Enoch goes up and petitions on behalf of the Watchers that they're going to cease and desist and cool it. They're going to cool it. And the Watchers came from the presence of a living, loving God. But they gave up their first position to be down here on this prison planet. Enoch comes back with some really bad news. And once they got this bad news, they went on to sin against the rest of creation. They set out to destroy all of creation and combine their DNA with all of creation. So, angelic DNA combined with a fish, what are you going to get? Mermaid. Angelic DNA combined with a bull, a cow. What are you going to get? Minotaur. Angelic DNA combined with a goat. I mean, you know, look into all this old stuff that is supposedly mythology, and it's not. And these things were around, and some of this stuff is still around. Some of these things were successful enough to still live off in the shadows and reproduce and continue what they are.
Yeah, absolutely. There are too many people having too many real experiences to ignore. There's definitely things out there. Audrey has one more question. She's a long fan of the show, so I let her. You know, I pretty much let anybody have as many questions as they want. But she writes. She also writes in about dragons. She says, I personally think that dragons are separate from dinosaurs, not just an older name for dinosaurs. One place I saw evidence of it was in China at one of their dinosaur museums, and talking to the Chinese, even though we know museums spin things too, why separate them there and not over here if they weren't separate in the first place? We already know about the giant cover-up over here. Why not a dragon cover-up? So what do you think? Is there a difference between dragons and dinosaurs, or are they essentially the same thing? What are your thoughts?
Well, we read in the book of Job, he's talking about behemoth and leviathan, and it's very descriptive. And it's unfortunate that in the King James Version, in some instances, they've taken on a legalist point of view, and they want to call behemoth an elephant or hippopotamus. You know, I mean,
yeah,
you know, you've got some 1600s legalism going on. The passages should speak for themselves. You know,
absolutely.
Job was talking about, you know, he has humankind being here with these creatures. Once again, they were here. Now, the dragon, the fire-breathing dragon, I mean, you know, there's some descriptive things about that in Scripture. And I don't think it's romantic language, essentially, in some cases. I mean, we're talking about a fire-breathing dragon. Now, depending on which interpretation you're looking at, there's a lot of passages about unicorns, too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it just depends on what you're looking at. But dragons, I don't know. It's probably something more mythical, if you will. Perhaps even otherworldly, potentially.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, especially with people having sightings of the reptilians and things like that. I'm sure in the in ancient times that could have easily turned into things about dragons and stuff. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Conrad writes in, my question would be if he has ever encountered a Tokoloshi, which is a dwarf-like water sprite according to Wikipedia, or something similar. When I was younger, one of my best friends was playing in his driveway at dusk. All of a sudden, a little black figure, he could only see it as a shadow. It looked to him like a little human made out of a shadow, and the eyes were even a darker shade of shadow.
So this little creature jumped on their car and jumped under the car, disappearing. The next day, there was a big dent in the pavement underneath the car. Really interesting. What's your take on that? Have you ever come across anything like that?
Personally, no. I've only done the interviews other than the little person that we have a photograph of, and that's Bagashwa Guinea. I can't even say the word. It's an Ojibwa name. I'm working on it. I'm going to get it right. I'm going to say it right, but we're working on an article presently with Phantoms and Monsters with Lon Strickler, and we'll get that article out, and the photos will be in there, and everything we can tell you about these little creepy creatures.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll have to be looking forward to that. And that's something that
But once again, you go back to Navajo Skinwalkers and Legends. Chief Dan has a photo of an individual about 18 inches tall sitting on a rock in the river.
Yeah. And thank you again for sending me that link so I could see it. And it's phenomenal. I mean, it's one of the clearest photographs of anything like that I've ever seen. That is the end of the viewer questions. So again, for the audience, if you want the chance to send in questions to future guests, you can do so at the Sharpening Report Facebook group. Just go ahead, become a member. I'll be happy to have you as long as your Facebook isn't spammy or anything like that. And you will have the opportunity to ask future guests any question that you like. So going back to the little people, this is something that is relatively new for me, and I'm really interested in it. The first time that, we're all familiar with like ancient stories of elves or fairies or things like that. But it wasn't until recently that I actually realized this was a pretty real phenomena that's happened, that people are actually witnessing these things. And one of the first that I heard about that was when we had Sarah Brown on the show, and she talked a little bit about that. And then in talking to you, and you sent me those pictures, that blew my mind. So for the audience that might not be familiar with what is the whole what's the whole story behind these little people? What are they, and what have been some of your experiences?
It would be once again a case by case basis. I'm not going to give anybody a convenient umbrella description for this.
Sure.
It's case by case basis. I'll go back to the Dene Navajo. They have continuous encounters with these little people. Continuous. One of the investigations that they did was sheep slaughter, where I guess about 24 sheep went down overnight to some unseen entity, and their heads were snipped off like a giant scissors. 300-400 pound rams had their heads snipped off, and just weird stuff. And the injuries were really weird too. The meat was bored into like something circular, went in and pulled the meat out. Weird stuff. Well, the family out there on the reservation, a bunch of the nephews got together and were feeling all manly, and they're like, we're going to stand guard and we're going to wait and see whatever it was, it's probably going to come back. So they stayed up all night. About 3 or 4 in the morning, they saw something coming up from a wash, a ravine, and it was little people. And they watched them in quiet and in silence for a little while. And they were dressed in buckskin, and they had stone knives, bows and arrows, very primitive in their opinion of people. And when they got up close to the corral, that's when they turned the lights on in their vehicles and spotlights and everything. And they gave chase to these little people. They took off and went after them, and they got down into the wash, and they jumped down into gopher holes, and they just disappeared. And I don't believe they were responsible for the carnage. I think they were probably looking for a snack. And they could, smell all the carnage that had happened up there. Oh, let's have some lamb chops tonight. That'll be good. Let's do that. So, another little people story. Talking with Chief Dan, he had little people come around, and, he says, don't feed them. Don't get involved with them, because they're always looking for food. And once you start feeding them, you become their bitch, and they will torture you.
Oh, wow.
Tap on your windows, dance on your roof. They'll cut your brake lines. I mean, heinous things once you start the feeding process. you continue to do so. I remember at one point in time, I was in Walmart in Farmington, New Mexico, near the reservation. A little old granny, a Masana Navajo lady, who was looking for a Barbie tea set. And they went and found her the Barbie tea set and toys. And they go, oh, that's cute. Is that for your granddaughter? She goes, no, it's to feed the little people. And I found out more about this lady. She has been feeding the little people. She cuts the food up for them, real fine, pours them little drinks in a little Barbie tea set, and they come and eat.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's
they're between 12 and 18 inches tall. I've done other reports. Young lady, their vehicle was stuck on the reservation. She doesn't have a cell phone. She's walking to the nearest convenience store across country. She can see it, about a mile and a half away as the crow flies. And as she's walking, she looked to her right, and there's this 18-inch tall couple standing there in full traditional dress, if you will, from like the 1950s. The gentleman had on a black cowboy hat, a black vest, blue velvet shirt, blue jeans, and boots. The woman standing next to him was wearing traditional blue velvet dress, turquoise, concho belt, rings, the whole works, and just staring at her. And she said proportionately, the arms are right, the legs were right, everything was right. The heads were probably a little bit bigger. If you blew them up to full size, the heads would probably be a little bit larger, but proportionally, they looked like a human copy, being 18 inches tall.
Wow.
Going further.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another Masana lady that I'm going to interview, and she's, when I get back down there, she'll talk to us. She's been feeding them for a very long time. I think she's about 103. Nobody's really sure. When this lady was born, they didn't keep very good records. But she feeds little people, once again, on a daily basis. She tries to leave them alone to have privacy. So they typically come when she's not around or not looking. And she leaves them food, and they leave her little packets of tobacco and little packets of herbs. She smokes them out in tobacco, they leave her, and takes the herbs and makes tea. And she's as spry as a 60-year-old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I really don't know.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah. So you say they like live underground. It sounds like that they have like their own culture. Like these aren't just some kind of weird animal. There's an actual like consciousness, a self-awareness there.
No. There's a good friend of mine was up on a ranch in Utah, and he was married to a Navajo lady. And they told him right away when he got up there, he said, the little people come out around, just leave them alone, stay out of the way. Don't make eye contact with them. Don't bother them. And he thought, these people are full of crap.
Yeah.
I think it was about 2 days into his stay there. He's looking up out of the kitchen window, drinking his coffee, and he spits it on the table because there's a little dude sitting up on the windowsill looking at him.
Oh, wow.
And he goes, I was just without words. And then once he saw them all the time and would look the other way, try not to have any contact with them or anything. But he did do a little bit of investigating. He saw where they had tunnel systems going into the barn. He saw where they had tunnel systems coming into the basement of the house. I mean, they had the whole area dug and easily accessible for their activities. And he couldn't wait to get off that ranch. He said it was just not a very comfortable feeling. It wasn't a warm, fuzzy feeling being around these little entities. It felt more evil to him.
Yeah, I bet. Wow. Has anybody ever tried to like capture one of these things or anything like that?
I think these little people probably scare me more than almost anything else because they can get to you. They can get to you. They can go through a crack in the wall. They can crawl under your door. I mean, things like that. And in mass, they can be a problem. This Ojibwa little people situation I'm investigating where a hunter was grabbed up by several of them and dragged into a root tree system.
Oh, wow.
And he was just about gone, and his dad got there, and his legs, just the back of his legs were sticking out. They almost had him disappeared. And Dad pulled him up. So freaky deagle goobers. I'm not comfortable with it at all.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I wouldn't be either. Is there any correlation or any type of connection between little people and say like the little gray aliens?
No, and I'll tell you this much: with the gray aliens, what we've worked with, and I work with a lot of people who are aerospace engineers, and Norio Hayakawa, Ron Reguer. I've got a lot of associates, and most of us are in the opinion presently that the gray aliens are a bioengineered meat puppet with about the program of a 286 computer. And you take them outside of that program, they don't respond very well.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I sent you the ultra-terrestrial investigation where the uncle of the witnesses was able to dispatch a gray alien, beat it into submission and or kill it. And there was gray alien tracks all over that property, all over the place. And we were lucky enough, even getting there a couple of weeks later, that some of the prints were still up above the property where we could get some photos of them.
Wow. Yeah. My wife and I watched that the night that you sent it, and it's really interesting, and like I said before, you get really good witnesses. My wife had an experience similar to that. It wasn't gray aliens though; they were bigger. But when she was a little girl, they actually got into her house, and she could hear them. The way that it started, her bed was moving by itself, and then she would hear something running on the roof, and her and her sister, if I remember right, her and her sister. I think they shared a room, but anyway, my wife could hear them actually get into the house, and then she heard her dad, like she screamed, she was freaked out obviously, and her dad woke up, and I guess her dad, he was a really strong Christian man, and he used the name of Jesus to get rid of them. He in the name of Jesus, get out of here, and they did. They left. But yeah, and she didn't see him, but she said that her dad did, and they were he said they were really, really tall and really really like really dark toned. My wife did see one a different time where she saw a UFO, and she actually saw a creature in it that was looking right at her. It was that close. Those are the two times that she's had experiences like that. But yeah, it's really weird stuff. And I agree with you about the gray aliens. It seems like that there's just something off. It's not like with the reptilians or the Nordics or even the mantis things. There's at least some sort of intelligence there, but the grays, it seems like there's something off, in people.
Don't assign a race or a culture to the grays because they're meat puppets.
Yeah.
And even the things that aren't meat puppets, question the source and where they come from, because they've been here the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. Myself and I pretty much, I think everybody that watches the show, at least the grand majority, of the audience, and this is something I've written about quite a bit too, is that these things are not, entities that originate, from another planet like we do here on Earth. They're, most likely fallen angels or hybrids that have been created by creatures like that. And so we kind of have that take. But yeah, I mean, I should probably ask what your take is.
Well, once again, I've said before, these entities are not here to cure cancer.
Yeah.
They're not the nice little helpers. We just need to understand them. No, they're not here to help us. And they're not here for the advancement of humankind whatsoever. They're here for our destruction.
Yeah, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. And, that's something that I've been writing about in my books and stuff too, is that, if they were here to help, well, where's the help? Where's the cure for cancer,
Well, wait a minute. When you all get your act together and you become one, then we're going to come on and tell you who we are.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's never going to happen. So, everybody wants disclosure. Everybody, Nick Redfern, prolific writer, love him dearly. One of his books, Final Events, and he's more of an agnostic or an agnostic, if you will. But in the end, I think he's going to convict himself of some kind of higher power or authority, because he was interviewing all these ex-Air Force colonels and generals and so forth in his book, Final Events, who'd been involved in some of the different dark projects, if you will. And they're all coming away from this alien entity type situation as being demonic. And I would like to remind you, in later years with John Keel, they asked him, are you a UFOologist? He said, no, I guess I'm a demonologist.
Yeah.
Because he was putting the pieces of the puzzle together even then. It isn't what we want things to be. In my heart of hearts, I want Bigfoot to be Gigantopithecus blacki, an Asian ape that crossed the land bridge and migrated into the North Americas and South Americas. In my heart of hearts, that's what I want. That's not the case. But if I wanted to take that narrative and shove it down your throat, then I guess I could do that. But you know what? Too many people are doing that. They get a narrative and they stick with it, and they'll beat that narrative to death, even in light of all the new factual evidence. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. We see that time and time again in network TV and certain researchers and stuff. And yeah, it gets old because there is new research, and with new research, many times that's going to redefine conclusions. And that's actually a really good segue into your Bigfoot research, because I know that that's a big part of what you do as well. What have been some of the experiences that you've had, and what have you turned up in terms of the Bigfoot phenomena?
Well, as would correlate with this program, we should probably go into Dr. Melba Ketchum's whole genome study, where she had 111 samples from Canada and the United States that she was able to process and work through into the study. In the end, and this is saliva, this is blood, this is skin, this is hair. In the end, she came up with 3 whole genomes. You and I, Josh, could go down to South America, capture a weird monkey, and if its genus was about 20% different than the other monkeys, then you and I could name them after we did a whole genome on the monkey. It's a new species. So it's the JC Peck monkey. Okay. With 1 whole genome, we have a new species. We came up with 3 whole genomes in the Sasquatch genome study. And unfortunately, Dr. Melba ended up publishing the paper on her own through her own journal. But we've been into Nature 3 times, and eventually we signed off, they signed off, and then they wouldn't publish it or sign off on it finally and send it back to us. So we self-published. But these are doctors, scientists, PhDs, forensic doctors, and so forth. And once again, we did double-blind testing through bunches of other laboratories who came up with the same results. And you don't see any of these laboratories who came up with the same results refuting any of their findings. You don't find any of the other authors on this paper trashing the findings of this paper. All you see is a great big Greyhound bus called Scientifica, I like that word, Scientifica, parked on top of the study. And what's interesting, all the mitochondrial DNA, which is the original mother, all the mitochondrial DNA came back as human.
Oh, wow.
And it isn't that we share so many traits with this, that, or otherwise, like 84% of our DNA is found in bananas.
Yeah.
We come from bananas. No. When we go back to the mitochondrial human situation, we have Jewish ancestry, Germanic ancestry, Asian ancestry. That's where we're going with this.
Yeah.
Native American ancestry. These are the mitochondrial mothers from these furry people. So that throws everybody for a loop right away. And the people early on in the study, it freaked them out too, but they were coming, it came back as human mitochondrial. It was not cross-contamination as is claimed. I could cut off a piece of your ear. I could cut my finger, bleed on it, send it to a laboratory. I would come back as a second party, the contaminant. We'd still find you.
Yeah.
So there's disinformation, misinformation. I kept waiting for the laboratory to get burned down. I didn't think they'd let her get as far as they did with this study. In the end, all they had to do was marginalize this poor woman, Dr. Melanie Ketchum. And at least for now, they're successful. But Johns Hopkins University, I'm going to be working with them. They're coming back with similar findings. Another thing, when you do the whole genome, you get the nuclear side of the DNA. That's the original father, the progenitor of the species. When the progenitor of the species came out, it was unknown DNA. We've got billions and billions of pairs of everything on this planet in GenBank. There was nothing in GenBank that matched the daddy. Who's the daddy? Interesting. I think for the first time in history, we've got angelic DNA on file.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating, and I agree with that too. You know, there are it seems like the big made majority consensus, nowadays about Bigfoot is like what you said, that it's just some type of ape or Gigantopithecus or something like that.
I would love that. I would love that. I would love that. In my heart of hearts, that's so easy and convenient.
But unfortunately, the evidence doesn't. The evidence speaks against that. And there's been a lot of reports of people that have seen these things, come through portals or out of spaceships or really weird things like that. What's your thought on that end of the whole Bigfoot phenomenon?
Where I want to be and where I want to stay is from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
And from the outside looking in, I want to stay on the side of science. Well, I firmly attest to the fact that they have abilities that we don't have as far as the furry people, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, aka hairy hominid. Yes, they have abilities we don't have. But on the side of science, I need to look in from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
In my opinion, these are remnants of giants. These are feral giants, remnants of feral giants, in my opinion. Can I prove that? Not yet, not necessarily. And is that going to cloud my judgment in further advancing the study of these creatures? No, that's my opinion. But there's things coming into place in conjecture otherwise that points to a direction, and I'm heading that way. I am.
Yeah, Have you?
No. Do I have an opinion? Yes, I have an opinion. I think these are remnants of the giants. I really do.
Yeah, that's along my current.
Remnants of the giants with that bloodline preserved, unlike the bloodline that's being preserved by royal families.
Oh yeah.
And they would look down on these furry guys when they're on the forest, where they're probably 1 or 2% Nephilim still being preserved, whereas these forest entities are probably 20 or 30% Nephilim preserved. And when we get down to the actual components of the breakdown of these creatures, they're probably between 1 and 17% human, even though the mitochondrial mothers, the original mothers, were human. The progenitor is outweighing all the other DNA, just as when our X factor got introduced to the Denisovans in Neanderthal. They didn't die off, we bred them away. That's their disappearance. We had the X chromosome. Be fruitful and multiply.
Wow, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Have you actually had personal experiences with any of these hairy people creatures?
Yeah, I've been close enough to feel their breath and body heat on my back.
Oh wow, you got to tell us about some of those things.
There's just too many. I wouldn't even know where to start.
Wow.
Really wouldn't get started. But you can go look at some of the videos. There's not a lot of pictures. There's not a lot of tabloid stuff. There's no comic book blurbs. I'm sorry, but you can go look at some of the videos and get an idea what we're doing almost on a daily basis out there with the furry folks.
Yeah. In your experience, in your opinion, do you think these things like pose a threat to anybody living that might be living around them? And if so, how would somebody, what would somebody do if they encountered something like this?
Once again, it isn't that we're out looking or we're hiding behind some stump somewhere with a flash camera. What we do is we get people contact us who have got situations, and we go and follow up on that. So that's what we're doing. And then a lot of times we'll get together and say, this guy needs this family needs that. You know, what's the biggest need? Where should we go? So we're going into active areas in the first place when we're contacted by these people and or these families. And one of the first things I look for, there's three things when it comes to the furry folks. There's three things that are top and foremost in my mind. Number one, is it a rogue male? Number two, does this individual have an attachment to a family member? Number three, show me the calories. Out of those three different tiers, you're able to explain a lot. Rogue male, not a good thing. Okay, speaks for itself. An attachment to a family member, not a good thing. And then number three, show me the calories. By showing me the calories, is this individual just passing through, or is he complacent in an area with plenty of grub? Lots of Happy Meals at the drive-thru. Okay, that's kind of the way I would put things together. The attachment to a family member, this is something I've seen around the country, whereas in northern Georgia, went and got out with this guy and his family, and he had some really good recordings from his swamp down below his home. And there was a little small chunk of land you could actually pitch a couple tents on and move around that wasn't overgrown with swamp. And the boys, his sons, had been down there camping. Other folks had tried to spend some time down there. They'd been run off. So right away, me and Chief Dan went down there and we pitched our tents. This is where we're going to stay. But through the investigation, what I came to find out, there was a 5-foot little furry dude that would run out typically when a younger female from the family, human-wise, was out there. And there was a big male. Even the husband saw the big male. He was sticking around. We saw the tracks going out. The rest of those guys, there was probably half a dozen of them, they all left, and there was no returning tracks. And we didn't find any returning tracks on any of the trails. These guys were gone. They split. They're off to find some more calories. These two stuck around, the 5-foot dude and the big, tall, 10.5-foot tall male. And in my mind, they had picked out 2 members of this family to watch and wait for. I can't explain it. But they're ready and willing to watch and wait until, I think, essentially when their time comes when the world is given back to them for a time.
Wow. So do you think, going along with that thought, do you think there is a time where these things are going to be more present and are going to reveal themselves more, or do you think they're just going to?
I think at some point in time they're going to be a whole lot less benevolent that they've been, and you know they've been kind enough. At least the good Lord has made sure they haven't come in and snapped my neck or you know dispatched me in some way, shape, or form. There's probably a time coming where what's holding them back won't be holding them back, and that's a concern.
Yeah, I agree with you. What are some of the other types of cryptid creatures that maybe aren't as well known that you and your team have been active in looking into or have had witness accounts from?
Well, you know, the actual Chupacabra, it's gotten so flipped and twisted, you know, the blue mange dogs out of Texas, these hairless mange dogs, poor, pitiful diseased creatures. That's a Chupacabra. I got it on film. We really got away from the actual descriptions, and the descriptions that I take to heart are from the police officers in Mexico and South America and Costa Rica and so forth, where we, got collaborating witnesses and evidence and so forth of the description they're giving of these Chupacabra, and it's not a mange dog. not by the furthest link. They've got these crazy little spike thingies or plates that go down their back and across their head, and they're probably more reptilian in nature. It's just people get umbrella descriptions and it sells newspapers and gets hits on YouTube. Makes people tune into a news program where, it's not anything to do with the actual topic. But then it gets clouded and it gets immersed into this culture of umbrella description.
Yeah, and I think that's how people kind of get themselves into trouble, and they have these umbrella terms for everything, and so when they come across something, they think, well, it's got to be, it's got to be this certain way, or it can't be at all. I mean, Bigfoot's a really good example of that. I was watching a presentation by David Paulides where he made mention that, they're kind of a lot like us in terms of appearance. There's not just one overall look for all of them. Like if you line up, 10 or 20 people, there's going to be all different shapes and sizes and colors. And, he said that at least for Bigfoot, that it's a lot like that too. They're individuals, and everyone's going to be a little different than every other one. So, that's what I like about how you go about it, that you stay away from like the umbrella things, and you deal with it on an individual basis like that. It's a good way to, it's not a popular way, but I think that's the best way to go about things like this.
Well, going back to the Chupacabra situation, yeah. We had a river tour company on the San Juan River through the Navajo Nation, Navajo tribe. And we would take people down. It's like class 1s, class 2s, but you're getting back into some beautiful canyon country. And you're stuck on the water for a couple of days. There's no Circle K's on the corner or Howard Johnson's to go turn in at night. Pretty rugged, but we're getting it down. And I wanted to get this tour company going on, and essentially and eventually we unplugged the whole thing because I couldn't guarantee anybody's safety once they got on land.
Oh wow!
I will, I will take some hardcore people down. And you're going to sign a disclaimer, but I will take you down and I'll do everything I can to make sure I die before you do. I'll say that much. But at one point in time, we had a group come down with us, and Chief Dan, he's our Navajo elder, was running point. And running point, you're going off because chunks of trees break off and they start making islands, and you get all kinds of nasty little things. You're going to get sucked underneath in a kayak or get flipped out and pinned or trapped in a canoe. So, you always got somebody running point to look for obstructions further downriver. And then at which time you're going to get everybody out and around, in a different direction, get them away from the danger. That's what running point is. So Chief Dan was running point for about 1.5 miles. While I was getting everybody acclimated. You got people never been in a kayak before, never paddled a canoe before. And the first 2 or 3 miles are pertinent to get a little bit of paddling skills going on, because you're going to need to make some adjustments down the river. Save your hide. So I'm getting the basics down, and I'm comfortable with it. So I'm going up to relieve Chief Dan. I'm going to let him roll back into the midsection, because now, from here on in, other than the rapids, every corner, every turn, every river bend, he's got a story. Navajo tradition, oral tradition, or personal knowledge of these areas. It's story time, and it's amazing to hang back with this Navajo elder and hear the stories that he tells. So anyway, I'm rolling up to relieve him, and I'm about 100 yards behind him. Something blew up out of the brush to his left. And he paddled up, and he just beached the nose of his kayak, and he was looking around. And I hurried, and I caught up with him. I go, what the heck was that? Is that an elk? A bear? A deer? He goes, no. This is back 2004 or 2003. He goes, no, it was a kokopelli. Okay, Kokopelli, cool. Well, anyway, Leonard, go back, story time. I'm going to take point. So we get down and we've got several different camps depending on the water levels and the time it takes to get to these areas. So we got to one of the camps, got everybody off and out, built their houses, passed them out their MREs, meals ready to eat. You know, you guys need us? We'll be over at the fire here. You know, and it's guide time. You know, we're keeping on the watchful eye out, but it's time for a beer. And I sit around the fire and I go, so Leonard, Kokopelli, that's the Anasazi flute player, right? And he goes, well, he's not playing a flute. I go, oh, okay. Because that's actually a tube that comes out of the back of his mouth. And what these Kokopelli do is they slash the jugular vein. And then the tube comes out of their mouth and sucks the blood. And he goes, they can hop really far and jump really fast, and some of them have wings. I'm like, Kokopelli, sucking blood. I go, wow, you know, the drawings of the Kokopelli look strikingly similar to Chupacabra. And this is 2003. Leonard didn't have cable back then or satellite or anything. You know, and his remedial Navajo, he understood a lot of Spanish, and he goes, goat sucker? I go, yeah. Kokopelli's Chupacabra.
Wow.
So he went on to explain that the Kokopelli were the house pet of the Anasazi. And they would guard the cliff dwellings and their residences while they were out hunting, farming, and so forth. Like a really nasty pit bull. But at some point in shape, they were able to domesticate them to a point. Leonard said when we ran them off, and what he's talking about, the Anasazi, the ones they didn't kill, built higher cliff fortifications, and they died. A lot of them went back down to South America and Mexico because they were Aztecs. The Anasazi were Aztecs. Satellite cities, satellite situations for the Aztecs, which will be slammed and gutted and torn apart by Scientifica. Going from the oral tradition, who named the Anasazi? Ancient enemy, the Dene, the Navajo. That's Anasazi. So I'm tying in the Kokopelli as the actual Chupacabra. Camps.
Wow.
I've seen their footprints. I haven't seen one. But other people have, and I've investigated and talked to other people who've seen these. When we start getting similar descriptions and body types and characteristics, then we start pulling together. Okay, you guys saw Kokopelli. There's a Kokopelli up on your roof that left those scratches. A Kokopelli that jumped from your barn to the roof of your house over to your shed. You know, same body description, similar description. So I mean, we can start making common denominators there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's fascinating. I've never heard that connection made, but you know, thinking of it, that fits. That makes a lot of sense.
The South American officer who had one in his headlights because he startled it on the road. It was sucking the blood of something, and it stood up. And you know, he heard the plates rattling on the back of the head and down the back. You could hear the plates rattling like a rattlesnake, and was upset. And he saw it open its mouth, and he saw this tube come out and then go back in.
Wow. Yeah. Imagine seeing something like that. That must have been frightening.
I mean, that's some good correlation from Leonard's oral tradition, his recent sighting in 2003, and what's going on down in South America and Puerto Rico and Mexico.
Absolutely. And speaking of oral tradition and history, the last time that you and I talked, you brought up some really interesting things with going along with the Anasazi, and you brought out some interesting things with the Anunnaki and the ant people that lived under the ground and stuff. Can you get into some of that?
We're going to be talking about the Chupacabra.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's another YouTube video. Once again, we can go back to the several videos. The ultra-terrestrial investigation we've talked about in this program so far. You can go watch it on YouTube. This is another video. It's available on my YouTube channel. It's called Expedition to Sipapu, Grand Canyon's Lost City. What we have is G.E. Kincaid in 1909, and we read about this in the Arizona Gazette-Republic at the time. And I was telling Josh, you know, to do a solo trip down the Grand Canyon on the Colorado in 1909 is a pretty ballsy thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, they didn't know a whole lot about the Grand Canyon and the Colorado River in 1909, but he's doing a solo trip down the Grand Canyon. What he's doing, he's a headhunter for Smithsonian. He's looking for old Spanish gold mines or silver mines. And he gets down to a point above Phantom Ranch, I think about 5 or 6 miles from Phantom Ranch, and he sees some tailings coming down. And with great difficulty, he climbs up about 1,600 feet above the canyon floor. In some cases, we even believe he may have found some stairways going up to this doorway. And he walks through the doorway. He's got an old oil lamp. First thing he sees is Phoenician statues, Phoenician hieroglyphics, a Buddha-type statue. You know, essentially from the get-go, it looks like a multicultural underground facility, thousands of years old. And the Arizona Republic Gazette article goes into greater detail on his findings. He's also talking about the tunnelings there, the smooth tunnelings. He said it was like spokes inside a wheel, round, and you've got tunnels like spokes. And he found a dining hall. He found what was actually plates, saucers, and cups. He said you could have put 50,000 people in this underground facility, yet it was, in his opinion, thousands of years old. We don't hear much more about this. And that was the last write-up out of that newspaper in 1909 from Arizona. We do run into G.E. Kincaid years later, and he still has some artifacts that came out of that facility. Now, something, David Asher Childress is in this video. You all know him from Ancient Aliens and so forth. They've later kind of chewed him up a little bit about G.E. Kincaid not being involved with Smithsonian, where we've found all the evidence and documentation that he was indeed involved with Smithsonian.
Oh, wow.
I later find out that the Knights of the Grand Council got together with Smithsonian. They built the tramway from the canyon bottom up to the mouth of this facility and hauled everything out and floated it downriver and carried it out on mules. I would guarantee you a lot of it they probably dumped right into the river. It didn't fit their narrative.
Yeah.
So it just disappeared. The giant skeletons, you read any kind of newspaper article from the 1800s, you know, Farmer Brown found a 12.5-foot long skeletal remains, blah, 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 while plowing his field. He's got it on display, and a representative from the Smithsonian is on his way up to talk to him. Every time you read about these giant skeletons being dug up, found in a cave or otherwise, somebody from the Smithsonian is on their way to see about it.
Yeah.
The original CIA, Smithsonian.
Oh, wow.
So we go on to that, but more interesting, in this video, I'm there with this group of gentlemen and ladies, and we're looking for Kincaid's doorway. We know within about 100 yards of where it is, so we're just looking for vents and fissures, something for airflow, something to tell us that there's the facility underneath us. We're looking for that. And they went back again this year. They tried to get a drone down over the canyon face, and I guess the wind was hell on it. They couldn't do it. So once again, a failed mission on that end, but very interesting. Very near this supposed underground facility is the Hopi Sipapu, the Hopi Zuni Sipapu. And the Hopi Zuni have stories or tradition-wise where they were taken underground for an ice incident. They were taken underground for a fire incident. They were taken underground for protection for a flood incident. And then they're all tradition. They've been let go into the fourth world because they rebelled against Masa, the god of the underworld. Now, very interesting, because the Sipapu is very near this underground facility. Their old tradition stories talk about being underground for very long periods of time and being let go into the fourth world. So essentially, you know, I've got Hopi friends who aren't offended by this, but they were probably the slave class of the inhabitants of this facility, this underground world, if you will. And they eventually rebelled, they had a revolution, and they were let go. They escaped into the fourth world, and the Hopi consider themselves and they're doing into their fourth world right now. What they called these people, these taskmasters and so forth, were the ant friends or the ant people. And I'm sure they probably duly noted their names from the way they tunneled. Essentially, and especially, they called them the ant friends. And the Hopi word for ant is Anu, and the Hopi word for friend is Nakai. Anu Nakai.
Wow.
Anunnaki. Oh, did I just kill us?
Oh no, I was just waiting for you to continue.
Oh, good. You know, once again, the Hopi oral tradition is remembering the good times, but you know, they probably sent them up to run the corn and take care of things up top. And do I think what Kincaid found in this facility near the Sipapu was a multicultural center? I say no. I think essentially what Kincaid saw and what got absconded and taken away was an Anunnaki art collection.
Oh, wow.
There's nothing there now. There's probably not even a grain of rice after they were done with it. So it would still be interesting to find a facility. And we've also been absolutely guaranteed when they were done shredding everything in there, getting rid of everything in the facility, they blew the door away.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We've been assured of that.
Yeah, they seem to want to get rid of anything that doesn't fit their, original narrative, which is unfortunate because there's a lot of interesting things that have been covered up because of stuff like that.
Well, once again, the Anunnaki, and I've said this before, it sucked to be a Sumerian. It was terrible. I mean, the Sumerian writings with the Anunnaki and what they were doing to breed and have a slave class and so forth. You know, these characters, these criminals, have been around for a very long time. And once again, you and I were talking about, did anybody ever check Zechariah Stitchin's homework, the guy who interpreted the Sumerian writings? And we do find that he potentially took some liberties in his interpretations of the stones. But in the end, what do we have going on? Being written about genetic manipulation.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I mean, it's history repeating itself. Of an interest, I'm involved in a study in antiquity. And we've got this axe head. And this axe head is either made in the voids of space or made out of a meteorite because there's no carbon in it. And it's an executioner's axe head.
Oh,
It's
wow.
a long, drawn-out story. But in the end, it's a study of antiquity, and we're all studying this axe head. It's got the 3 nails of Christ etched onto it. It's got music etched onto it. It's got the creation story etched onto it. It has Sumerian markings etched onto it and so forth. And it's got some properties to it that can't be explained. And essentially, this was something made by the Templars and then gifted to the Vatican. And in the end, under the Templar persecution, the same axe head they gifted to the Vatican ended up beheading thousands of Templars.
Wow.
And there's some things attached to this axe head, believe me. I won't go into that, but what is of interest, one of the gentlemen involved in the study, basically came out and said, well, I just want you guys to know that my employer has nothing to do with this study. This is my own personal situation I'm involved in here. But I want you guys to know that I'm with the NSA. And he whipped out his credentials and blah, blah, blah. And they were like, well, hey, thanks for telling us, because Most anybody else wouldn't say anything. So really appreciate you being honest about this. As we had to talking, he asked what he did with the NSA. And he said, well, essentially, I work with a group and we build these power cells. And once a month, I go to Edwards Air Force Base, the Anunnaki touchdown, and pick up these power cells and take off. And
wow.
that had to sink in for a minute. We're like, what? What did you just say? The Anunnaki? What? Wait a minute. What are you? Yeah, they're still out there. They're still out there.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
I don't want a convenient umbrella description or explanation of who they are.
Right.
I think in the end, they're probably another one of these successful genetic manipulations that made it. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It definitely seems that a lot of these things survived. And do you think that they fallen angels or whatever people might want to call them, do you think that they're still creating genetic hybrids today? And if so, is that in like a different spectrum than the ancient past, or is it basically towards the same goals? What are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, I think everything's getting together. Everything's getting in time and place and punctured and ready for a major event. I really feel that. I really see that. Everything is itching, waiting for something. And yes, they're continuing to make chimeras and scary things.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And all the research that I've done is pointed in that same direction. Well, I know that we're running close to to the end of the show, but once again for the audience, where can they find out more about you and your work?
Essentially, probably the best thing to do is go to JC Johnson YouTube channel. It's all right there. A plethora, a banquet. We'll have a banquet. Easy enough.
Fantastic. And
then
yeah,
I'm on
absolutely.
Facebook. We've got Crypto Four Corners on Facebook. I try to post all the latest stuff up there. I'm probably out of friend request on Facebook now. I think I'm getting up to where they cut you off. So I don't think it'd do any good to do a friend request, but you can definitely go to our Crypto Four Corners page on Facebook. And I try to keep the latest articles and videos up there of what we've been up to.
Awesome. Good deal. And yeah, for the audience, it is absolutely phenomenal research. So if you had to wrap up this interview in a final thought, what would you want the audience to take away from this episode?
Everything I'm doing, been doing, in the end, points back to creation and the terrible agenda to destroy creation and corrupt it.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I'm glad that there are people like yourself out there that is willing to do the work and vet all the research and put it out there for the rest of us, so we can have access to the information that tells us what's going on in the world. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and talking with us about your work and phenomenal research. It's been a pleasure talking with you as always, and we'll definitely have to have you on the show again, but I cannot thank you enough for coming on the show.
Thanks so much, and God bless all of you out there. And go to the root. Whatever you're looking at, go to the roots. Start there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. All right. That again was JC Johnson. Make sure to check him out online and watch his videos. He has a lot of really fascinating material out there that'll keep you busy for days. And like he said, it's all free, so you got nothing to lose. I highly recommend it. If you would like to find more episodes of The Sharpening Report, you can do so at ministudyministry.com and my YouTube channel, youtube.com/JoshPeckDisclosure.
Make sure to subscribe and share. Also, if you care to help support Mini Study Ministry, you can do so at ministudyministry.com. Your donations go to the everyday running of Mini Study Ministry and help bring you more episodes of the Sharpening Report, as well as more books and other materials. And I'll say, as I do in every episode, please only donate if you feel God leading you to do so. If you're not sure, or if you don't feel led, you can always pray for us. We can always use more prayer. We're not 501c3, so your donations are not tax deductible. Not that we have anything against that. We're just not. And I'll never be the kind of person that's going to promise extra blessings from God or a miraculous tenfold return on your money or anything like that. We're not in the business of making promises for God. But what I can promise is that your help, be it prayer or financial, is greatly appreciated. It keeps us going and is the only reason we're able to continue doing what we do. So all that being said, I want to thank you all for joining us tonight on the Sharpening Report. I am your host, Josh Peck, and as always, take care and God bless.